Tonight we're talking about something that's very close to my heart. I've never really fully opened up about my near-death experience. Maybe I should call it a near-life experience. And it's not going to be sensationalized at all. Okay, can you hear okay, Mom? Sounds good? It's not going to be sensationalized at all. Yeah, okay. It's just going to be raw and real. And it really taught me how to live fully, to appreciate life, to be grateful. And I learned that life's not something to control, it's just something to really appreciate. Okay, so let me tell you about this experience I had when I was 5 years old. And I was in America, I was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And what happened was I was playing with my brother and my friends, actually one other friend, and I saw my brother run up on a pool table, you know, the billiard tables, and I saw him running, and my brother was around 7 years old, and I was 5, and I saw him jump from the pool table, and I swear I saw him push through the glass door. It was a big glass door. I swear I saw him pushing with his hand, and it opened up, and he went through. So I had a towel wrapped around like Superman, and I said to myself, when I run and I jump, I'm going to really impress these guys, and I'm going to push through that door and just fly like I'm Superman. So I started running, and then when I went to push, right before I hit the door, I noticed it was a sliding glass door. It wasn't a push through. So I knew I was in trouble. I knew I was in big trouble. And so I couldn't do anything about it. I was already flying. I jumped pretty far. So I pushed with my hands, and I went right through the glass door, and all the shards went inside me. They went in mostly through my armpit here. And I landed on the ground, and right away I was in shock. I was just frozen. And I didn't know what was going on because my armpit had opened up here, and I thought it fell off. And all this blood was just spraying like a hose. And so my brother, thinking fast, my brother and my mom saved my life. My brother picked me up and we ran home. It was a neighbor's house. So we were close to our house. My brother picked me up and we ran home. He carried me home. And then when my mom saw me, she was shocked, and her eyes were very wide. She got a towel and wrapped me. I don't know if it's a towel or an ace bandage, and wrapped my arm. My mom knew to do that. Even though there's glass inside here, she felt like to control the bleeding, she would wrap me like that. Well, I noticed my dad was running from a distance through the kitchen, and when he saw me, he fainted. He passed out, so he wasn't any help. He was afraid of the sight of blood, my father. So my mom rushed me to the hospital, and when we got to the hospital, all I remember is right away we went through the emergency room, and I remember I was in an operating room. At 5 years old, this is my memory. I'm going to give you my memory, you guys. And just know, every time I look at my armpit, if I look in the mirror when my shirt's off, I have a scar here and a scar back here. So I'm always reminded of this. And I'm grateful and thankful that I'm reminded of this every day. So on the operating table, I was still me. I was aware of what was going on. I was very weak. But I saw the surgeon and the nurse. They were coming towards my armpit area. Maybe it was anesthesia, something to numb me. But the needle, when I was 5 years old, I swear it was this big. It looked like a harpoon when I was 5 years old. So I was very afraid. I remember that. And then they went to stick it in me. And when they were going to stick it in me, the next thing I knew is I was above my body, way up by the ceiling of the room we were in. I was way up there, but I wasn't aware I was up there. I just was there, and I was looking down at these people, and I saw the surgeon and nurse and then a child there, and I saw them sticking the needle into the child's area here, and I said, what are they doing to this child? What are they doing to this kid? And then I realized when I was up there, that was me. I looked at the boy and I recognized that was me. The hair, I was face down, but my head was turned to the side, and I realized that was me. They turned me over, and then I saw it was me, and I knew. This is what I remember. And then when I was up there looking down, I didn't panic. I felt so protected, so loved, so safe. And I knew immediately that there's a God. No one talked to me. I didn't have any, like you hear stories of near death where people have these sensational things that happen. But for me, it was sensational enough. I didn't have anybody talking to me, but I knew, I felt embraced, and I felt loved, and I felt like I was going to be okay. And so I watched the surgeons and the nurse, then I watched the surgeons operating on me, and I heard them talking. And what I remember what they were talking about was they were talking about me, and that I was lucky that because the glass was on my main artery, but it wasn't going through it, it was just right next to it, and they were able to pull the shards out with some instruments. And they were talking about a girl that had come in to see them a week earlier, and she had died. Because they said she had the same type of accident, but she had turned when she went through the glass door. And they said, when I went through, I went straight. They knew that. And then the next thing I remember is that I don't know if it was the next day, 2 days, or if it was right after the surgery. I don't know. I just remember I came to, and my grandfather was holding me. And then I was looking at myself, and my grandfather was holding me. And I noticed I was wrapped in an ace bandage, like maybe many ace bandages. And my arm was kind of to my side like that. And my grandfather told me, "You're a very lucky boy, George. You're very lucky you survived this." And then he asked me, "Do you want a Hershey's chocolate bar?" And I said, "Yes, Grandpa." And so he carried me to a machine in the hospital. We got a Hershey's chocolate bar. And then that's kind of all I remember. I just remember all those feelings, but I realized that there is a God, and I have some talking points here so I stay on point, because I want you guys to enjoy this story. It's a true story. So I'm going to look at my talking points, and I'm going to, just to keep me on point. So what I noticed right away, like I said, I noticed there's a God. And as I got older, I was always like praying. I would sit on my bed, like kind of in meditation positions. And my parents thought I was really weirdo, like a weirdo, like I was strange. And I just felt so connected to God. And I didn't feel like it was a religious thing. It was just deeply spiritual. And it was in my heart. I felt a lot of love and compassion towards other people. And towards myself, but towards to other people. And I think this near-death experience, it led me to the Philippines. Because in America, I was so different than other people. And I was kind of kept to myself, and I would go to school, I'd go to work, and I'd write poetry. I'd write a lot of poetry, and I wouldn't really interact with a lot of people. I was tuned into my inner self and my inner thoughts. And I always felt like an outsider in America. And I was different than my other brothers and sisters. My parents were very happy with them because they seemed to be on point to just fit into society the way it is. But the way I was is I always felt, like I said, an outsider. I felt different because I couldn't stay online to that. I didn't want to follow what other people were doing. I didn't want to, just what the world was doing. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to fit in. It's not like I didn't want to fit in. It's like it just didn't feel right to me. And as far as dating, my parents would say in America, a lot of people would say, sow your oats. And what that means, if you know what that means, okay, but a lot of people might not know what that means. It means to meet people, to have relationships with women, and to kiss women and do all those things. But that's what my parents wanted me to do, so I'd have experiences. And so one day when I got married, it would be the right person, kind of, because I'd have all these experiences with other women. But for me, I felt like inside me, in my heart, it was wrong. I wanted to, I always wanted to be with one person. And I didn't feel like, and my friends even would say, you need to date a lot of people. But I didn't want to do that. And I didn't want to party. I didn't want to drink. And I was always a designated driver for my friends. When they were partying, they would call me to pick them up when I was in high school. And so that's kind of the way that things went. But when I got older, I just started, I was writing a lot of poetry when I was in my teenage years and then into college. And then I would notice I was focused on my thoughts, and I would pray a lot. And the people that I would attract in my life were like spiritual teachers or just people that believed in God. And I would seek out certain teachers because I wanted to learn how to meditate so I could calm my mind. I had a lot of anger inside of me. And anyway, I was able to just focus on my inner stuff. So I noticed I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of envy towards other people, a lot of jealousy when I was younger. And so I started meditating on those things. I was driven inward. And then I noticed when I was in my early 20s, I still had anger, but I was able to work through it. It was starting to turn into compassion. So I feel like God was talking to me through my heart that the other side of anger is compassion and acceptance. The other side of jealousy was also acceptance and happiness for other people's accomplishments. So it was like the opposite. Isolation, the opposite of isolation is understanding that we're all connected, but not just connected. Interwoven is the word I want to say. We are so interwoven and dependent on each other. Even when people fight, like all the disagreements in America, which I really don't agree with, the labeling of races, the labeling of if you're Republican, Democratic, Independent, Conservative, whatever. All these labelings, I just didn't understand that kind of way of thinking because it creates separatism. And then when people would complain about feeling like they were treated in a different way because of the color of their skin or their religious belief, I kind of didn't understand that either, because to me it created a victim mentality, like where you would blame other people for your issues, where it's God gave us tools inside ourselves, where we need to look at our own glass house. Like it says in the Bible, we all live in glass houses. Fix your glass house first before you cast stones at somebody else's. Don't throw stones at someone else's glass tower. Well, I really believe that, like, for me, I have to work on my own glass house, and I teach that to my children. My wife and I talk about that also. Faith here in the Philippines, it's all driven me towards this marriage with my wife. My wife and I, as I say in videos, we've been here in the Philippines. I've been here. My wife was born here in the Philippines. All my kids are Filipino citizens, born here in the Philippines. They've never been to America. My wife has never been to America. And I'm the one that came here. And my wife and I have been together for 14 years. And we have 4 beautiful children that you might have seen in the videos. So I'm going to stay on point here. There's something in Romans. If you don't have to be religious, you can believe in whatever you want, but I just noticed in Romans 12:2, and I'm going to read this to you. It says, And this for people that feel like they don't fit in, like how I felt. I don't feel that way anymore. I understand God God brings us to our purpose. And we shouldn't really chase our purpose. We should just maybe, I'm not going to preach to you, but the way I did it is I just said what I was interested in. I know I said this. I'm not too old to not be useful. I can be useful. I have a reason to be here. I know I'm alive for a reason. I have hands. I have legs and feet to walk. I can be of service. So that's purpose. But I wasn't forcing purpose. I was saying those things. I know it's not too late. I know I have a reason to be here. And in that, I found my purpose. And purpose doesn't have to be, before I read this Romans 12:2, I want to just make this clear that purpose doesn't have to be so huge like it's like world changing, galaxy changing. Purpose can be simply being a father raising children, or a mother raising children, or a father who wants to live so much and stay alive because he feels bonded to his child or his children, that he loves them so much that he's going to do anything to make their life to his best so their life is stable and happy. That's purpose. Well, my purpose, I found out, was this YouTube channel, to make videos. Even though when I started around 9 years ago, I had no idea how to make videos, and my videos were really crappy. But I realized I had a voice, and I had words and phrases from the poetry I had written as I grown over the year and matured and wasn't a child anymore. And I was a man that I had a message to communicate. And it's not my message, just like this is not my body. This is all gifts given by God. And so my message is going to be delivered to anyone that's not spiritual, anyone that doesn't believe in God, or people that believe in God or religious. It's a global content, what I'm sharing. I'm not saying you have to be a certain way, because I don't live my life that way. I live my life believing I'm the same level as everyone else. No one's higher or lower. And there are no labels. There's no eyes. There's no ears. There's no tongue. There's no mouth. There's nothing. There's no name. I'm talking about the deepest point, or not the deepest point, but when we leave this world, we don't have our body. We don't have our eyes. We don't have our tongue. We don't have our mouth. We don't have our ears. We don't have our senses. Yet God gave us all of these things to live as a human, to be able to experience things so that we can be of service. But the ultimate path for us is not to live to reach our potential. The ultimate path for us is to reach our highest capacity as a human being. And the highest capacity as a human being is to love and have compassion for others at the deepest levels. And to do that, we have to look at ourselves. We have to heal ourselves. So that's what I believe from having my out-of-body experience, winding up on a faith-based channel, my spiritual journey here in the Philippines as an expat, to share my message. And who knew that was going to be? Because when I was a young boy, I had so much anger that I would yell and I would punch walls. I had so much anger that I couldn't control myself. And who knew I'd be on the opposite end here in the Philippines, sharing about compassion and love to my children and to people here on YouTube, and to share this journey with my wife, who teaches me so much about love and about sacrifice here in the Philippines. So I want to read Romans 12:2. And this is, many Bibles say different things. And there's the Old and New Testament, and then there's Christian faith, Jewish faith, Buddhist faith, Islamic faith. Indians have their different faiths. There's thousands and thousands of, I think there's probably thousands of different religions. I'm not speaking from a religious point of view, you guys. I'm just speaking from a heart of love. That God has given me this heart. And I know that God judges us by our hearts. Not by the biggest things we do on this world, in this world. Those things mean nothing. And the people that feel lost because they feel like they don't fit in, God wants you. God wants us. We fit in. We fit in. So Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. So do not conform. That's why I never could conform, because God was leading me somewhere else. And I was always trying to fit in. But when I stopped trying to fit in, that's when wonderful things happen. God's abundance poured into my heart. So by renewing our mind, and how do we renew our mind? How do we renew our mind in God's purpose for us? What's always good and loving. So anyway, I every morning when I wake up, for years and years, I've recited, and I close my eyes and I quiet my mind. And I just want to share this with you. And my wife does something similar, but it's changed our lives, it's transformed our lives. And that's what I want for the people in my life, the people that hear my message, is transformation. The people that need to hear this message. And what I say is I close my eyes and say, I'm now writing in my subconscious mind the idea of God's abundance. It's like this. I'm now writing in my subconscious mind the idea of God's wealth. And God's wealth, it's everything. I'm not talking about material things. God's wealth is much more abundant than that. God's wealth is kindness, compassion, understanding. And then all the things, material things of the world also. Humans make those bad sometimes, but those are not bad. The material things that come, great inventions that have been invented by people, that's God's mind. It's not man's mind. So what I say is I'm now writing in my subconscious mind the idea of God's wealth. God is the source of my supply, and I know God is the life principle within me, and I know I'm alive. And all my needs are met at every moment of time and point of space. God's wealth flows freely, joyously, and endlessly into my experience, and I give thanks for God's wealth. And I give thanks for God's riches forever circulating in my experience. And I repeat that for around 15 minutes every morning and most every night. But I just sit quietly, and I say, thank you, Father, for thou hast heard me. I know, or I knew, you always hear me. Thank you, Father, for thou hast heard me. I knew, you always hear me. Thank you, Father, I'm so grateful. Like that. And I quiet my mind, and then I listen. And then God gives me my videos. God gives me my videos in dreams when I wake up, and then I just write what God told me. It's not me at all. I don't take any credit for these videos. I just write what God tells me. And then the ideas that flow into my head. And then I write them down, and then I make the videos. And then that's what I put on. So it's God's blueprint. Every video is God's blueprint. And I know I'm not alone like this. I know I'm just a regular, simple person. But I see things like examples of people that didn't use their education, or people that didn't even go to college. They didn't fit in. There was Henry Ford in America. He created cars, the Ford's cars. Then there's Edison with the light bulb. And then the other one is, what's his name, Mom? The one that made the battery?
I don't
The cars? The Tesla.
Tesla?
Tesla.
Oh, Tesla.
Yeah. Those guys, what Tesla did was he would put a notebook and a piece of paper next to his bed, and then he would just tell God, before he went to bed, he would just say, he would, in his imagination, he'd see the blueprint. He would see the blueprint that God gave him, and then he would just saw himself making the blueprint, God's blueprint, and then it was something fantastic. And he had no idea what it was. Well, he said he wrote down what God told him, and it turned out to be the battery, Tesla's battery. And then Henry Ford and Edison also did similar things. But one of them, I think it was Edison, he would put a metal plate, like a metal ball, when he'd fall asleep on his lap or on his chest, and then he'd fall asleep on his back. And then in his sleep, he would turn over and it would drop to the ground and make a loud sound. And then he'd wake up so he can imagine what he wanted again and again, and then go back to sleep. Because he believed renewing the mind was doing through his imagination, because that was one of the tools that God had given us. He gave us our subconscious mind. And instead of thinking on the negative thoughts, these people, I noticed, they would do the same thing that Caroline and I do. We're following that blueprint. We're not creating anything else. It's just we focus on the things that we can do that are, it's not like positive, some dreamy world. It's like having the near-death experience really changed me to be like this. It's like to focus on, instead of being a victim, focus on whatever I see as like God's abundance, that all I have to do is imagine it and then say the words, like if I want to attract health, or someone else is sick, then I will just see them well. I will see them well, and the things that they do as well. So if someone's well, they're able to interact with people. Maybe if I'd see them running, jumping, and they wouldn't get out of breath. So I knew they were well. When my daughter got sick, I would see her playing and chasing her brothers and sisters, the things that she does normally, and then she was well. Because that's the renewing of the mind, is to see those things that are true, that we can place in our subconscious mind without controlling anything. We just imagine it. And then we see it true. And then when we see it true, we're preparing ourselves. That is true. And then God says, oh, this person sees me already healing them, healing their daughter. So I'm going to make it happen because they believe it's true. We've already prepared our table. And then God is coming in there and doing that. So my near-death experience, it drove me from feeling abnormal to these things in my life where I would attract other people that maybe had similar things within their hearts. And then when we're together, we attract those things out of each other and other people that come into our lives. And so the Romans 12:2 is really good. I really love that, because it reminds me to always be renewed in the things that God wants us, our purpose. And then the purpose might not be what we want to do. Because for me, I can use myself as an experience instead of other people, because I know what happened in my life. And for me, I thought my purpose was going to be, first I was going to be a professional football player. In America, that's not soccer. It's like you grab a ball and you're running around. I wanted to be that, and I thought I would be that, but people told me I was too short. But if I really wanted to do that and that was my purpose, then I wouldn't listen to what they would say. I would just focus on that. But that wasn't my purpose. Then the next thing I thought my purpose was to be a MMA fighter and to fight professionally, and I was doing that. But what happened was in my last fight, I couldn't even punch the guy. I didn't want to hurt him, and I was afraid to hurt him. And my heart had compassion for the other guy, and I realized that wasn't my purpose either, because to be a mixed martial artist and to be really good at it, you have to really want to hurt people. So at least when you're in the ring, and that wasn't my purpose. But I learned that my purpose was making YouTube channels, because that just what fell into my lap, and out of nowhere it came, and then it was like my heart would feel it, and people would say things, and I would just have these wonderful experiences. And then it was helping people. People told me, thank you for that, or I needed to hear that, or they believed the same thing I believed in, and they felt isolated. Now they didn't feel that way anymore. So I get so many messages like that in my YouTube channel over the years, and it just really spurs me on. It keeps me humble. It keeps me grateful. I wrote down some things, like when I write my poetry, and I wrote, striving for my fullest capacity to be truly alive. And I think I mentioned that a little bit. So I write these things down. So I wrote, striving for my fullest capacity to be truly alive. And what I want to communicate that in this message. And what that means is that sometimes people will say, strive to reach your highest potential. And if you get to part of that, you should be happy. But for me, I don't agree with that. I think we should strive to what God puts in our heart. And if you don't believe in God, that's okay. Because God still loves you. And if you're the kind of person that can look at a sky and know that it's beautiful, and the trees are beautiful, and the rain, it's raining right now. The rain, the sound of the rain, the taste of fruit tastes so good, or certain foods, then you believe in God, but maybe you don't know it. You believe in another way. But it's okay, because what I think, it's like a knowing in my heart is that we should strive for our highest capacity to obtain it. So the highest form of love, the highest form of compassion towards others. And I'm not talking about blind compassion. I'm talking about compassion where it's skillful compassion, where you can look at somebody and just know that they need to talk about something, you need to listen. Instead of when someone shares something with you, you just share your story, and you just kind of, whatever they said, you're talking about yourself. But the highest form of compassion is when someone else shares something and we know, when we look at them, we understand them, and we know they need us to listen and not give them a sermon and not tell them what to do, but just they need us to listen at that point. They need to be heard. Or when I was working in hospice and a person was dying and they didn't want someone to talk to them about God. They just wanted them to help them get rid of the pain, because they were suffering so much in the pain at that moment. And so there would be people that would come there and they would take care of that pain at that moment. They would be present in the moment to take care of that person's pain, so that then they could think about what they wanted after that. That's skillful compassion. That's what I'm talking about. Those are examples. And I did say we're not bodies in charge of ourselves. We're interwoven. I wrote that down too. We're not bodies in charge of ourselves. And my example that comes to me was when I would always be reminded of that when I was in America. And there would be people getting abortions. And the people that come to get abortions, I heard them talking, they were late term, they were almost ready to have the child and they wanted to get abortions. They'd be fighting for that. And we're not bodies in charge of ourselves, but we're interwoven. So that, to me, when I would see them like that, I would think to myself, that person's lo'oi, because they don't know what they're doing, that their body is not their body. This body was gifted to us by God, and it's a miracle that we're even alive. We could have been something else or not even born, but God, by the grace, gave us this life. And then the child that's going to be born, that also is not ours. That child is born and gifted by God also. God owns everything. And we're interwoven. We're not connected, but we're interwoven. We really depend on each other. We need each other. And when we understand that, we won't be fighting each other. We'll be doing our best to lift up each other. And I'm not talking about some utopian world where you have to love everyone's bad behavior. I'm not talking about that. Okay. Then the last thing I wrote here is we are not the entire galaxy. We are not the entire galaxy, not within but without. We are not the entire galaxy, not within but without. And what I mean by that is God put the entire galaxy inside us. It's just like there's more than that, but God finished creation a long time ago. God finished creation, and God created us. He knows everything about us. And so that's in us, but from within us, by our thoughts, by how we care for our thoughts, the negative thoughts that we put inside ourselves, if we choose to do that, we get that outside ourselves. That comes from within to without. And so that will be in our world here where we live. We will attract those things, be it positive, negative, because God's going to gift us. So if we're born poor, I'm going to, as an example, for me, I was born poor without a lot of things. But I was born in America. But if I would have just said, okay, I'm born like that, I am going to accept my circumstances. But that's not true. God doesn't want us to accept our circumstances. He gave us tools where we can use our thoughts and our imagination to convince our subconscious mind that we can have whatever we want. And God will give that to us, but we have to believe. And if we really believe, we're going to get that. And I'm saying that through experience. This is not some positive thinking, you guys. It's through experiences that have happened to me, that I've witnessed in my wife, Caroline. Since we've been together, I've witnessed things that people would say are miracles, but they're not miracles at all. They're ordinary things that God gives us. So if we believe I have perfect health, or I am health, I am abundant in all ways, in all of God's ways. So that's health, that's happiness, that's physical, monetary things. They're all gifts by God. And many things I'm not mentioning. Doesn't mean you're greedy because you want those things. It's what you do with those things and what you do when you attract your purpose. Because your purpose is gifted by God. All of our purpose is gifted by God. So anyway, call me crazy. Maybe you don't agree with me, and that's fine. Caroline, do you have anything to say?
No.
She's here, you guys, but I'm just keeping this on me here.
Okay. I'm just listening. That's all.
So I want to ask you guys, have you ever had something like a near-death experience or a brush with something that took you close to the edge of death, or the edge of life, should I say, that changed your thinking forever? If you've had that, please share it in the comments. Just comment and share that. I really want to know. Caroline and I read all the comments. We really want to know. And when you guys leave comments, it helps me make videos that resonate with other people. It helps me make videos related to the Philippines expat experience here, the multicultural family, expat life, Filipino culture, multicultural marriage. We can say that because we really have that, because I was born in America, but my wife was born in the Philippines. We live in the Philippines, and all of our children were born in the Philippines. So we really have a multicultural experience here.
Yeah.
And let me look at something. I wrote some things down here. So if you've had a near-death experience or a spiritual awakening in your life, just share it in the comments, you guys. And my family is really focused on living fully, expat life in the Philippines, faith and family, multicultural marriage, multicultural living here in the Philippines, and family faith journey. But we're not religious at all. I just want to make that clear. And we really give a message of healing through faith. That's our message, you guys. So let me see what else, if I missed anything. So the bottom line is, in the comments, I want you just to leave a message about what I mentioned, but also tell me what living fully means to you. You don't have to be in the Philippines. You could be anywhere in the globe. What does living fully mean to you? Leave the comments, you guys. And that's all I got for this live. I don't want to waste your time, so I wanted to bring something to you that I feel that might be helpful, even in a small way. And so this is George from Raising Roots Abroad, and I'm going to put Caroline on here. And that's Caroline, my beautiful wife. And we're going to continue making videos, you guys. So if you see our videos, just watch them and tell me what you think. All right? So we'll say bye for now. God bless you and your families. We wish you the most abundance and happiness. Bye for now.
Bye for now. Bye.